Thank you very much. Scott Smith has been to more than 60 different oil and chemical disasters in this country and abroad. He works on the ground trying to diagnose and solve water contamination events. And Scott, thanks for being with us. You were just in East Palestine last week. What did you find?
Well, yeah, let me tell you first, thanks for having me. And 17 years ago, I was wiped out in oil and chemical contaminated waters, and that's the why. I had 100 employees walk the streets, no information. And that's when I realized everything we thought about water testing is flawed and remediation is flawed. And that's why I'm in East Palestine. So if I can help any community not to have to go through what I went through with 100 of my employees. And in East Palestine, I was there at the request of residents February 22nd through 24th. And my second trip was last week at the request of more residents. And what we have found from my first trip, the results take about 15 to 18 days, are dioxins and petroleum hydrocarbons. And let me tell you, the best way to describe dioxins, they are the fentanyl of chemicals because they're dangerous and it doesn't take much. And just to illustrate that, dioxins, this is a penny. Dioxins are measured in parts per quadrillion. In all my experience, it's been parts per million and parts per billion. But fentanyl, I mean, that's why I call dioxin the fentanyl of chemicals, because it's measured in parts per quadrillion. That's equivalent to 1 penny out of $20 trillion.
So, Scott, if I'm in East Palestine and I'm listening to this interview right now, how concerned should I be?
You should be concerned if you're not getting information. And people in communities, they need information. If we can get them the information as to what's really in their water, in their soil, and surfaces. For example, I am swabbing the furnace filters to see what they have been exposed to. And the good news about all this is that if we can find and identify all the chemicals, people can go see their doctors, they can get treated, and things can be remediated properly. But the bottom line is the theme in over 60 disasters in dealing with all this, you can't find what you don't look for. If you're not looking for the dioxins, you can't find them. That's why we started looking for these dioxins.
So on that note, what have you heard about labs there refusing to test the residents' blood for dioxins?
A handful of residents have contacted me and said the labs in the area are no longer testing for dioxins in blood and refusing. Unfortunately, from my experience in disasters, I call this undue influence. And the communities and even the responsible parties would be much better served if they called off the public relations people and lobbyists, because that undue influence is never to be underestimated. And the labs most likely have a lot of pressure on them not to do these kind of tests.
But one would assume that in a state like Ohio, where the Attorney General is now suing, that the labs would be testing to make sure that we knew everything that was going on inside the bloodstreams of the people that are there. Are you saying that the labs intentionally aren't looking for dioxin, or that they can't, or that they're not equipped to look for dioxin?
Yeah, they are equipped to look for dioxin, and the residents have told me that. And I am going back for a third time this week to continue testing. And I'm going to personally call up these labs myself or go visit them and try to get some answers and verify that they're truly not refusing to test the people of East Palestine's blood for dioxins.
How does this compare to other disasters that you've seen?
This one in all 60, and this is no exaggeration, usually with the other chemicals and oils, I've never been to an event that had vinyl chloride and then this burn that created this mushroom cloud that spread everywhere. And what separates this one is that people seem to be getting sicker. And these dioxins are called persistent chemicals. They don't evaporate like a typical oil spill. They don't evaporate. They don't dilute easy. They cling to the soil. They get disturbed in the air. They go into the sediment of the creek and then get released. So they're going to be around for a long time.
Scott, I've heard people compare this to the pits from September 11th, where people went in and they worked, and they were told everything was going to be okay. And they found out decades later that they weren't okay. They are dying of cancer now. How long will it be before these residents actually know what happened to them on that day in East Palestine?
Well, That's a great analogy, and we're going to do everything in our power to prevent that. It's all about information, getting the residents accurate information, and not letting that happen where they go without information. Then 5-6 years down the road, God forbid, they get cancer. Because I am confident that if we get the information out to the community quickly, that they can be treated. That is the #1 objective.
Scott, I only got 20 seconds left. If you lived in East Palestine, would you drink the water, and would you continue to live there?
I would move out of East Palestine, and I know a lot of people can't, and I know a lot about water, so I really don't drink tap water to begin with. But I would be, if I lived there, I'd probably, out of an abundance of caution, drink bottled water and try to relocate. Hopefully, have family driving distance. But my concern is there's a lot of people that can't relocate, and they need help, and we're here to help them and do whatever we can to help.
Scott Smith, I want to thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you.